Following the breaking news tonight, the Supreme Court has ordered the Trump administration to facilitate the return of Maryland father Kilmer Armando Abrego Garcia back to the U.S. after mistakenly deporting him to a prison in El Salvador. A 9-0 ruling, the court upheld an April 4th order from U.S. District Judge Paula Zinnes. Joining me now is NBC News reporter Lawrence Hurley, MSNBC political analyst and former Republican Congressman Carlos Curbelo of Florida. Hey, Lawrence, I want to key in on some interesting language right at the top in this order, which I know you've been digesting. The Chief Justice says the order properly requires the government to facilitate Abrego Garcia's release from custody in El Salvador and to ensure that his case is handled as it would have been had he not been improperly sent to El Salvador. I know a lot of folks are sort of fixating on facilitate. As a lawyer, I'm like, okay, what does that mean? What's your interpretation? What are you hearing this court saying to the administration at this point?
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting question because they're saying the district court was right to rule that the man had to be, that the government has to facilitate his return. But they said the judge was wrong to say that the government has to effectuate his return, saying that that might implicate some kind of foreign policy issues where, you know, the president normally has a lot of power and courts aren't supposed to interfere with that. So the issue here is what's the difference between facilitating and effectuating? And at this moment, having just looked at it, I can't really tell you the answer to that. But I think that's what the court below, when the case goes back, is going to be looking into, and the Trump administration as well is going to be probed on, you know, what are they going to do and how are they going to facilitate his return so that he can get the due process that he should have had before he was deported. And so that's what's going to be playing out when it goes back to the district court now.
Yeah, you know, Carlos, there's a lot of interesting, thinking around this word facilitate and what it potentially means, particularly given from my reading of this in relation to what has come before. And it's even stated in this opinion, there's still this deference that the court has to this executive power, this executive authority that seemingly is all-knowing. The justice notes the district court should clarify its directive with due regard for the deference owed to the executive branch in the conduct of foreign affairs. Well, this is not how you conduct a foreign affairs, by grabbing people off the street and shipping them to a foreign government prison camp.
Well, that's right, Michael. But I think the good news is that the court is following through from its previous order on the idea that people have due process rights. Right. And this individual was denied due process. Well, actually, they all were. Yeah. In this case, this person was improperly deported. And what the court is saying is that the government at least has to show some effort, show that it is trying to bring this individual back to the United States so that he can have the due process that the court guaranteed in the previous rule. Lawrence,
have you heard anything from the family? Have you heard anything yet from the family? Any response from their lawyers? I'm sure folks are pretty excited about this, but still this, what does facilitate mean? What is the process? But what are you hearing?
Yeah, I mean, I haven't heard from them directly, but one thing that is worth bearing in mind is that the judge below, the district court judge, had set a deadline for the government to retrieve this man from El Salvador, and that deadline has passed. So, and the court basically put that on hold. So at the moment, he's still in prison, and he's going to be in prison probably for a while this case plays out, unless the Trump administration takes pretty aggressive steps to try and get him released, which they've shown no interest in doing so far. So there's definitely more litigation here to come. But as we've just heard, it's an important decision to say that, as it did in the other case about the people being deported to the Venezuelan gang members deported to El Salvador, that there are these due process rights that the government has to follow, and the court in both these cases has been pretty clear that there has to be some process here. You can't just throw people on planes and deport them in the middle of the night, without giving them any chance to contest what's going on.